Yay, I'm here. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Monday. It's 1 o'clock. It's March. We still have a tree. Um, so, yeah, I was just talking to my kids and they just said, oh, we realize it's March and our tree is still up. It's going to stay up for as long as humanly possible. So, today we're going to be doing some bias weave on the Zoom loom. But before I get started, there were a couple things that I didn't have in front of me last time that I wanted to show you, give you a couple of ideas because a question came up last stream that I want to address. So here this is what we're gonna be doing today, the bias weave, and I have started one here on my 2-inch loom. So the things that I wanted to show you. If you don't have a Zoom loom, but you have a wooden loom of some sort, I wanted to show you that I did find my other loom, and here is what in general they look like. I think for the most part, a lot of the wooden looms that you could purchase today have some sort of like little mark here or a piece of metal or something that indicates that's the number one corner. So keep that in mind if you're looking for any type of loom or if you're, going to thrift stores and stuff like that. Should you find one of these, it's always helpful to go online too and double check to see how the pins are set up. So the one thing I want to show you real quick, and actually let me take this apart because I'll show you how to warp this on the Zoom loom in a second. Here's my handy dandy Zoom loom all beat up. And so what I did was I put these side by side, and this is something that happens with different tools. Sometimes you have to kind of like figure out which tool speaks to me. Ooh, this is a really pretty wooden loom, but as a beginner in a lot of patterns, which I'll get into in the next stream, how to read patterns and stuff, a lot of patterns might be something that would be followed by the pins on the Zoom loom. Now, these two, the pins are very similar. The only difference that I have been able to find between these two looms is there's an extra pin here at the number 1 corner and an extra pin here at the number 3 corner. Everything else seems to match. So this particular loom, and it's a nice loom. I mean, like, it's nice and sanded, and like, it's Hazel Rose Looms. I want to say that it's wood burn, so you can't really tell, but maybe that's Trinity Center, California. I wish I could tell you when I bought this, how I came into possession of this. I honestly don't remember. But like I said, the only difference is there's an extra pin here and there's an extra pin here. So as long as you look at like the Zoom loom, which is what I do most of my stuff on, if you look at a Zoom loom, a picture of it online, and double check the pins on whatever wooden loom you have, just make sure they're in the same places. And if they aren't, plan accordingly. It also might help you figure out, in case your wooden loom is not marked with the number 1 space, then what you can do is then go ahead and put some sort of marking on your loom so you know which corner is number 1, and then it's fairly easy to figure out 2, 3, 4 from there. Okay, so there's that. That was the first thing I wanted to show you. And then the next thing I wanted to show you was the packaging for this loom. So I think I said in the last stream that I have a tendency to acquire a lot of tools once people die. I think it's sort of the affliction of the crafter that you'll find people in your life who are like, you're really crafty. My aunt died and here's all of their stuff. Would you like it? And I've acquired many sewing machines that way that I've then passed on to other people who could use them. I acquired 2 knitting machines that I tried desperately to figure out, and my brain just can't handle it. um, Something is like a mental block with those knitting machines. So I ended up giving them to a friend of mine in the Sacramento Knit Cult up north. Um, they're the folks, that's their, the knit group that's near where Lambtown is. So I went ahead and, you know, set that up. So, with that being said, oh, can't, I don't know why I can't see chat. That's really weird. Well, I hope this is working. So, maybe if I do this, there we go. Okay. All right. So now I can see the chat. So that was the first thing. um, yeah, Michael G, I still have that loom that you gave me. I keep meaning to take it to the Hand Weavers Guild meeting and see if somebody can help me with it. Because David told me that the reed needs to be cleaned or changed, and I'm so afraid to ruin it that I haven't touched it yet. But I do have people who can help me with that, so I do have that. But as long as and as well as all the rest of the stuff that you so kindly gifted me, thank you. So this particular loom I acquired from a friend whose aunt passed away, I believe, and had a storage unit. Not you, Michael G, but it had a storage unit that had the stuff in it. This was my friend Tanya that I got this from, and there were a couple different looms that I acquired from her. I also have this Weave Easy hand loom, which I have not used yet. But I find it really awesome that it's somebody put a date on here, 4875 Sunset House. I mean, it came from Michigan. It's got all the pieces in it. I mean, the box is pretty beat up, but I mean, everything's in here. And there's even this Mrs. Doris Van Dozen. So this is a relative of my friends Tanya and Joyce. And when postage was 10 cents, like, Lord help us, 1975. Oh, that's a long time ago. That's the year I was born. So I have that too, which I will be experimenting with later. But with that was this 2-inch loom. And the reason why I didn't open it for the longest time is because this packaging is amazing. First off, it didn't come with a needle. Not sure how you can make the world's finest weave for Afghans, baby clothes, sweaters, dresses, skirts, ideal for adults, children, schools, crafts, hobbies, the home, sick people, and shut-ins. You're not going to get very far if you don't have a needle to go with this. So it was just the loom itself with this little booklet. And whoever purchased it, I'm going to guess it was Doris Van Dozen, got it for $1 at Hudson's. So, like, I kept this because I was just like, the packaging is fantastic. And my partner is a toy collector. So there's that whole thought process of like, it's going to be worth more if you don't open the packaging. But honestly, like, what are you going to do if you don't open the packaging? Oh yes, the placemat and pot holder loom is similar to this. It doesn't have the teeth. The teeth are even around the whole thing. Usually you can get them and they're fairly large. I want to say like 6-8 inches. Sorry, I dropped my thing. 6 or 8 inches maybe, and you can use the big loops on it, but all the teeth are even. And usually you can find those. They're just a big metal frame that have the teeth like already molded into it. Okay. So, with that being said, today we're going to do bias weave. And I already started one here, so you can kind of see what's going on. But I'm going to show you how to warp and then how you're actually going to weave, because what I use, and you don't have to use one of these to do this weave, is something called a loop turner, which is a tool that's used by seamstresses and people who sew to make long tubes or spaghetti straps or what have you. Basically what it is like a latch hook on the end of a very long, it's a long handle, and then you have the little loop at the end here. And I find that this is just long enough. If I can fit it in camera here. Hopefully my camera will focus. I can fit it in camera here, and Lord, what is happening here? I did move my camera, so I'm hoping that I can work this out. I might have to lift stuff up so you can see it clearly. Anywho, so, oh, there we go. This is the longest thing I have right now in order to get across my 4-inch loom diagonally. Other options would be if you have a very long crochet hook. Usually they're used for Tunisian crochet. Tunisian crochet hooks would work. You're going to want a hook that's small enough that's going to fit in between the teeth on your loom. So that's why I find like these loop turners, you can get them for a couple bucks. They're not super expensive. Not that I'm giving Amazon any money these days, but I did get these on Amazon like ages ago because I actually had to turn some loops and I was very unsuccessful. So anyway, so I use this, and then I also use one of my needles. I use the thicker needle just as a pick. So if you're familiar with weaving, a lot of times you'll use something called a pick, and it's usually just to go in and, zhuzh your yarn and make sure it's all laying straight. Okay, so I started on this one. We're gonna warp on this one. So here's my zoom loom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are my corners. So in order to do the bias weave, which is on the diagonal, you're going to want to turn your zoom loom so number 3 is down and facing you. And this is where you're going to start your warp at. Now, I made a 4-inch bias, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll use this for one of those chickens that I had posted a picture of on my Blue Sky, but it's you can kind of see through it, so I don't think that that's going to be dense enough. But if you do a bias weave and you're doing it with thick enough yarn, you could most definitely do a pattern. Like I said, we'll be going over that in the future. You could do a pattern like a houndstooth or a twill or something to that effect, or even a plaid, and make those cute little chickens that were like all over Facebook for like 10 minutes. Okay. So with the 3 facing me, I'm going to take my yarn, and I probably should get my clip here. I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to secure it to this corner. Don't pay attention to where it's laying right now because I'm going to move it in just a sec. Okay. So I'm here at the corner, and as you can see, let me move this away a little bit. There's a gap here, and then we have 2 pins here and 2 pins here. So what you're going to do to start warping for the bias is you're going to take and you're going to go in between those 2 sets of 2 pins, and you're going to go all the way up to the top, and you are going to go around this top, let me move it over, around this top pin like this, and then you're going to go around this second pin from the top. I'm just anchoring it with my finger. I'll show you in a second. And then you're going to bring it down, and you're going to go in between the 2 pins down here on your right hand side. Okay? So then, and this is where it gets fun because you're not really going to be using your needle that much to do any particular weaving. You're going to be using the loop turner. So I'm down here between these 2 pins. I'm going to anchor this and I'm going to go around here. Let's see, do I want to go in between these? Yeah, I'm going to go in between those. Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm going to go around this pin here. I'm going to go up here to this pin. I'm going to move that aside there. So I don't know if you can see that. See, there's the third pin. I'm going on this side of it. And then I'm going to wrap my yarn around this pin and I'm just going to kind of lay it off to the side here. So it goes down here. I'm wrapping it around this pin and I'm going to lay it to the side here. And I'm holding it taut because I don't want this to be all loosey-goosey, right? And then here's where the loop turner will come in. So I have like this pass here, and you're going to go in between, you know, wherever you can fit your hook. You're going to go over. Maybe I should do it down here so it's easier to see. We're going to go over, under, over. We're going to grab this and then we're going to pull it through and we're going to loop it around the next pin right there. So you can see there's a gap between these two pins here, but you're going to wrap it around the very next pin. Okay. So that's the first pin of the 3 group that's right there. Then you can take the back of your hook or the front of your hook, depending. I mean, mine's a latch hook, so I don't want to like snag my yarn, but I'm going to take it, I'm going to pull it down, and I'm going to go over the second pin of these two right here. Okay. Then now that I have it around the second pin here, I'm going to go around the second pin here. And if you can see, because I pulled it through, and you see that it's already doing the whole under over thing, sorry, up here. The act of pulling it through and then pulling this down and keeping the yarn to the side is putting it, you know, over, under, over down here too. So it's like using the hook to make 2 passes, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it and I'm going to go around this second pin in this 2-pin series here at the 3 corner. I'm going to go up and around this next pin here. Let me move back a little bit. That pin in the 3. Okay. I'm going to wrap it around and I'm going to bring my yarn back down over here and hold it taut. Now I go back to this side, and in one of the spaces I go over, under, over, under, over. I grab that yarn that I'm holding, I pull it through, I loop it on to the next pin there. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit, and then I'm going to take that and I'm going to pull it all the way down into the first pin. Oops, I went around 2. Make sure you only go around 1. The first pin in this series of 3. Okay. And then I'm going to take this, and now I'm around this first pin in this series of 3. Obviously, I'm going like this way, right? So this lowest one, this lowest one, wrap around, go up, wrap it around this second pin here, bring it down and just hold it tight. There we go. And then do the same thing over again. Over, under, over, under, over, under. Grab that yarn, pull it through, wrap it around the next pin. And if you're having a hard time with your hook and you're splitting your yarn, once you wrap it around that pin, you can grab your needle. Like I said, you can use this as a pick and then just do this. Tighten it up. Pop it around that next one. Go down here to the next one that needs to be wrapped. Zhuzh it down if you'd like, so it looks nice and pretty. You can zhuzh this up so it looks even. You're going to wrap it around this next pin. You're going to go up to this next pin here. Wrap it around. Hold it off to the side. grab your loop turner, and you're going to over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. Yeah. Over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, pull through, put on the next pin, and you're just going to keep doing this all the way to the end. It's super easy. Obviously, like most things that I'm going to tell you on the Zoom loom, is that it's going to get tighter the closer you get to the end. See, I'm going to wrap around there. And you can hold it off to the side however you want. The main point is that you want to have some kind of like, you want to keep it kind of taut so that your weave isn't getting all like goofy for being tight and loose and tight and loose, right? So here we go. Always go over the one closest to your right hand. Hopefully that helps keep you, keep you honest and make sure that you're going the right way with your weaves. So see how it's like a little bit droopy right there? I'll just push it up a little bit, grab my needle, pull down, go over the next pin, come down here, go to the next pin in my series, up here, and you're just going to keep doing this all the way to the end. Super easy. It's a lot of fun. It's very, I shouldn't say fun. Let's put it this way. It's meditative because you are doing the same action over and over again, which, for some could be boring, but if you're looking for just like some kind of general relaxation exercise, this is really fantastic for that. And granted, like you're going to end up with the square at the end. And you're like, what do I do with this? Well, you put together enough squares, you might have enough for a blanket or a sweater or what have you. Or an army of chickens, maybe. Like, I feel as though the chickens I made for Christmas, I made some chickens for my aunt because she raises chickens, were kind of a hit. And she usually likes the chickens I make. I did make her, the year before last, I made her an emotional support chicken. So she has that too. So usually I try to do something chicken themed for my aunt. Okay. And then it's like I try to find themes for stuff. But yeah, so I thought like maybe some people might like chickens. Chickens seem to be really hot right now. It's the weirdest thing I think I've ever said. So I'm going to make a bunch of chickens and then I'm going to sell them before Christmas. I'm making an army of frogs. I'm making an army of chickens. It's just like I have my own little make-believe farm over here. It's really kind of crazy. I'm in the process of designing a raccoon pattern based on a design by a friend of mine who I worked with on Over the Garden Wall. It was one of his characters that is in the comic book. So I'm working on that right now because he asked me years ago. He's like, "Hey, your frog's really cool. If you ever decide to make another one, make this." And I'm like, sure, yeah, I could do that. And then, life happened and, but now because a lot of us in the animation industry are unemployed, I find myself with some extra time on my hands. And if it keeps me from going to Joann's, because Lord, I went this weekend and it was depressing. If it keeps me from going to Joann's, then I'm all about it. So I've already spent enough money on yarn. Let's be real. I've got enough yarn to last me probably a decade of projects, probably more than a decade of projects. So, all right. So hopefully, I don't know. I forgot. I'm so bad at like going out on social media and being like, "Hey, guess what I'm doing, guys?" Da da da. I didn't do that today, so I don't know that I have my some of my friends here who are doing the Zoom Loom stuff. which is fine because like all of these streams go right up onto my my YouTube channel right after I do them. So like I might have a few people here and then people usually watch it after the fact. One of the things that I'm hoping to do in the future, especially because I'm designing this new pattern, it's a doll pattern, obviously. So I'm hoping to maybe employ my children to help me relearn iMovie and see if I can edit some tutorials together, some just real short ones. But also too, I think I mentioned this before, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is that I am in the process of putting together sort of a pitch to do a workshop. So do some teaching, some fiber arts teaching. So we'll see. It's not something that I'm very comfortable with or familiar with. I'm not, like I said, I think in one of my previous streams, I'm not a in front of the camera type person. I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of person. I get very nervous being up in front of people, but I have done some programs previously for my local guild. Sorry, I moved my camera, so I'm gotta try to make sure I stay focused on where I should be placing this so you guys can see it good. I have done some programs for the Greater Los Angeles Spinning Guild. I'm currently their secretary. I'm previous president. I've been secretary numerous times. It's usually the one place I feel very comfortable because I'm there, I can help out, but I'm also sort of behind the scenes and just taking notes and stuff, and I can just be quiet and listen. So the programs that I've done for them in the past, this is me just talking while I kill time. The programs I've done for them in the past is I've done spindle sipping, which is something I'm probably going to do again this June. A big announcement, kind of, for anybody who is in the guild who doesn't already know. I am going to be this year's team captain for Tour de Fleece. Now that our fearless captain, Steffi Jo, has had to move up north for her job, I will be taking over those duties. I hope I can do her proud. I am so not an event planner. But I do have friends who can help me out. So I will be handling that this year. I'll be the Tour de Fleece captain for Team Greater Los Angeles Spinning Guild. The spindle sipping is something we usually do. I think we're going to be doing it around the time of our wheel tasting, which is our June monthly meeting. So if anybody's interested in checking out spinning, how to spin, and you're in the Los Angeles area, we meet on the fourth Saturday of every month. Obviously, schedule may change around the holidays, November, December, because of, holidays and whatnot. And so we usually will, we've combined the November and December meeting in the past, and we've also done them separately, but then have our December meeting is our holiday party. So, somebody is coming home right now. So, that's something that I've done in the past. I've also given some other short programs. Gosh, what did I give a short program about? I want to say I did whatchamacallit, a slideshow on using your different crafts together, like crafty mashups, which is one of my favorite things to do, is use my different crafts together. So put knitting with crochet and do some stitching or embroidery, and that's kind of a thing right now too. Like, everybody is embracing the fact that we can use our different crafts together. It's better to have all these skills and be able to use them together and find different ways to do stuff. So there we go. That's the start of this. So obviously I still have a little ways to go, but I'm going to show you the rest of this on the green one because I did the majority of it already. And it was super, super fast to put this together. Like, took no time at all. So I did the same thing. Here's number 3 down here. Here's number 2. I've warped it the same way. And I'm getting down to the last couple of pins at the end here. So hopefully I'll be able to show this to you just how you can finish it up. I'm gonna... Sorry about my dogs. I live in a house. There's always something happening, so they're usually crying. And I think that there's a delivery person outside or something because I hear a truck and they're freaking out because I have 2 corgis and they consider themselves the best guard dogs. Okay, so I'm going to pull this through, going to loop it over my pins. Now, as you can see, when you get to this side right here and you're at the very end, pardon me, I have 2 pins here. I'm going to show you here. These 2 pins here on the end. And then here's my yarn. So I wrapped it around both those pins and I'm going to pull it. And here's where having the needle comes in handy. So I'm going to zhuzh these apart. Zhuzh, zhuzh, zhuzh. So that I can make a little bit of space here in the middle. Because as you can see, hopefully, see how close I can get this here. You'll see that this pass and this pass are both above this center one, which means that we need one pass to go back this direction to break it up and make sure that it stays in pattern, right? So I'm going to need one that's going to go opposite these ones that that this particular pass of 2 strands, for lack of a better term, is over. And I have 1 pin here on the end. 1 pin here, okay? So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to make a tail, okay? And I usually cut mine, you know, a few times the width of this diagonal here, just for safety. I mean, it's not something that has to happen. And then here is where you're going to use your needle. Now, I'm using the needle on this. On this one, I would use my loop turner even for this last piece. So one of the things that I would do is make sure that when I cut the tail for this piece, it needs to be twice the length of this. So at least I have enough of a loop to pull through and not have it just like come out of the hook halfway through my pass for the last piece, okay? So because this is my last pin right here, this is going to be my last pass. So I'm going to go around this pin and I am going to do the opposite of whatever's here. Now, when I'm going this way, I'm going, you know, over under, right? But I'm going to turn this around here because I'm just going to do the 1 pass. And honestly, it's going to be the opposite. So you want to make sure it's the opposite of wherever this tail is coming from, the opposite of that weave. So I'm going to go under, over, under, over. Like this. And that's pretty easy to remember. You just want to make sure you're locking it in place by making sure it's opposite of the two pieces next to it. Turn around, pull it through. And I don't have to worry about yanking anything out because I'm around that last pin. So then I can weave in this end, should I choose to do so, or I can just pop it off the loom, and there I have a little bias weave. Okay, so like I said earlier, things you can do with this. You can make those cute little chickens if they're dense enough. And one of the things that I was just thinking of, because I just happen to have them here, I was going through this weekend, I had previously made a bag of these little granny squares, and they just so happen to be the same size. Funny how that works. So, like, I don't know, maybe you can mix little granny squares together with some woven pieces and make a cute little sweater, or a little crop top or something. My whole thing lately is making little tank tops I can wear over dresses. So I have one on the needles right now that everybody joked looked like a hat, but it stretches because it's like ribbing. And the only thing I have left to do on it is the straps. So, but these are little guys, because they're dense. You need 2 squares to make a chicken, just so you know. So if anybody's ever interested in making little chickens, hit me up and I can show you how to do it. The pattern's so easy. It literally takes like 2 granny squares, and then you just make like a little, what do you call that? A crown, a little beak. You put some little eyes on it. You make some little feet and a little tail. It's super cute, super easy. If you are well versed in crochet, should be no problem at all. So I'm thinking now, like, oh, maybe I could weave some little squares and I could mix them with my moons that I have in numerous colors, and make something that's maybe a little bit more light and airy. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. So that's how that is done. And then you could use an end to connect some stuff together. For these, I'll probably just like weave in back where I did some of this, or weave in my ends like I would for any of my normal squares. Just keep in mind that when you're making these, fabrics are going to be different. Let me show you some of what I got here. Fabrics will be different based on how thick your yarn is. So here's some really like lightweight ones. You can see these are really light and airy. These were ones I had done in a class. Very like, this one scares me a little bit because it's hand spun and it's like, I don't know what I was doing. But or if you have some artsy fartsy yarn, as I like to say, this one's really light and airy too, but it's thick and thin, and it's got metallic. I don't know if it really reads on camera, but it's got silver and metallic and some pale blue in it. And then I've got, this is just like a lightweight, maybe not even a lightweight. I think this is just a sock yarn in neon yellow. But as you can see, like, these are very airy. You can get different effects if you overlap them. So like if you're gonna make something like a flower, maybe you might want to do something in a light and airy square, and layer pieces on top. You can do that too. Like, I was just playing around with these two yesterday, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, maybe I might just yank the center and make a flower and use those two together somehow. And you can make brooches and hair things and what have you. But yeah, obviously, like, these are much thicker than like this red yarn I have here, which I'll probably use. I don't know how much red I have left, but this is too thin to make a chicken out of. Like, if I'm gonna make a chicken, I'm probably gonna do it out of something like this, like a thick worsted maybe. So you get a really like dense, like, you can still see there's holes in it, much like there is in crochet, but it's not anything that any of your stuffing's gonna get out of. So that's a thought too. So different ideas. Like I said, it's super meditative, and let's see, what else? The only thing I can think of too that you should probably keep in mind for something like this, the bias weave. See how it's kind of loosey-goosey on the end? You know, obviously you're going to want to block it, wet block it. But the way that your fabric drapes will be different than if you're doing a plain weave. So obviously you can see like there's a certain level of squish and stretch that you can do there. This is different. Like you can pull it here and it does that. See? So, you know, keep that in mind when you're doing this kind of stuff. It will behave differently. But one of the projects that I'm doing, that shawl with all of the different patterns and stuff of these squares, I'm hoping that if I put like, let's say you've got a bias piece and you're putting it in between a bunch of plain weave, that you're not going to get that loosey-goosey stretchy stuff that you might get if you had just a bunch of the bias weave ones together, because they are going to stretch differently. But if you surround it with other plain weave or ones or patterns like the twill or houndstooth or any kind of pattern, there's so many different patterns. You can make animals, you can do all kinds of stuff. I think that to give it more structure, if you want to be able to use it in a garment and you're putting a bunch of squares together in a garment, the one thing I would suggest is make sure that your bias weave squares are surrounded within plain weave squares. So I think that it'll give it a little bit more structure. It also depends too a lot on how you're attaching these, which is also something we're going to discuss later on. After we talk about how to read a pattern and do like the houndstooth and the twill. So, and patterns aren't hard to read. It's just they look different than a knitting pattern or a crochet pattern. So it's not, if you already understand fiber arts, it's not going to be a problem for you to pick it up. It's super duper easy. However, it looks different and sometimes people have a hard time with new things. So we can go over that before I talk about twill and houndstooth. So yeah, so that's all I have today. Hopefully, you know, you're out there making some pretty things and doing what you can to find some sort of peace and relaxation. But this is a really good way to do it, because all you have to do is over, under, over, under, over, under all the way around. So yeah, it's great. And like I said, mix it with some 4-inch granny squares and you can make, you know, you could probably, the possibilities are endless. What am I saying here? There's so much stuff you could do.